Okay, thanks again, Ms. Klutz. And Mr. Kiger has a comment. He wants to ask you about the access road at Winkler.
Well, before we make a motion, just since Mr. Shue brought up the road, for all I've read and looked at or whatever, I just don't really remember what I just don't remember much about that. He even had he's got the number of 300. Can you maybe just give me that one quick blurb on that before? I just don't want to make a motion and leave it out and not know what we're doing, or take it out and wish that we'd kept it in.
Give me 1 minute and I will see if I can find that justification. Dave, if you have anything to help us with that, you're welcome to come up. I did find the justification. We install a paved access road for emergency exiting of school buses and personnel in case of emergency at either Harold Winkler School or Weddington Hills Elementary School. Then when we talk about the middle school site, when the site was purchased, communications took place between the county and the DOT regarding the need for emergency exit or second way out of the area for the vehicles from schools in case access to Weddington was blocked. The project will occur on land owned by the county. However, the construction of a permanent road in this area of the site will require approval by NC DENR and a significant expenditure for handling stormwater drainage as well as wetlands mitigation. Another option would be to consider the purchase of property in the adjacent housing development that could provide access to the roads within the development that would give a second exit from the school properties. However, because the housing development has access only to Weddington, little would be gained by this option. So that was what was on our justification document, and if Mr. Burnett may be able to provide more insight on that.
You can try to answer any other questions that you have.
Let me ask you.
If we don't fund it, can we intervene with the design going on with that George Williams extension to allow us a 60-foot opening where the curb and gutter would be installed in such a way that we could later on put in a road? Because maybe it doesn't make sense right now. I mean, they haven't even really begun that project, and I don't know what their what their completion date is, but it doesn't. We don't need to put the road in if they're not going to have a road in place, and it would be better after the fact, once they've completed the road, than to put it in.
You certainly have that option. The timing certainly is an issue. As I understand NCDOT, that project is in the utility phase. It will be a while. Certainly you have next year. Certainly you have the year after that to consider this. And we certainly will work with NCDOT to try to make sure that we have that access at that point.
Yeah, there's no doubt we need the access. And the road is already there, to my understanding. It's a gravel road. It's paved, but it's just a dead end.
There is a path there. It is a rough path from what I understand. But it is passable. Whether it's passable by a fire truck or not, I'm not sure about that. And that's probably the root of the issue, is the condition of that path.
Well, even if we had to reduce the scope of that work down to a smaller amount to get the road passable, gravel versus pavement, because I'm sure we got a lot of schools that have gravel access to whatever. And so I don't know what separates the Winkler Middle School from the rest of them. That's just my thoughts. We got the rest of the board here to express their thoughts. Mr. Kiger, did you have any more comments in reference to access?
No, I guess not. I'm sitting here thinking of Hickory Ridge, where we're dying to get a second access as well, and it's kind of fumbling around at the state level too. So I don't know. I don't have a real strong feeling one way or the other. But if I'd be ready to entertain a motion. I guess we just need to decide to do with that piece. I'm okay with the request being at 2.5, and less the field at Central, and then everything else as we're showing it. Unless we just need to talk about that road a little bit further. If somebody wants to convince me one way or the other, I'm open.
Okay. On this side, do I have any other comments? All right. Do I have anyone of the board members that would like to make a motion?
All right, well, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the budget as presented by Mrs. Klutz with the following exceptions. This request for salary increase be adjusted to 2.5% instead of 5%. And in the capital request, the $800,000 for the field turf at Central Cabarrus be eliminated, and the $300,000 for the access road at Winkler Middle School be eliminated.
Okay, board members, you've heard the motion from Mr. Phillips.
Can I
Yeah.
clarify?
Yes.
When you say the 2.5%, you're talking about the continuation budget line item and not the expansion budget line item. Is that correct?
Right. I think there's that's right. It would be in the continuation. There's the expansion would continue to have the increases for teachers and non-certified staff. I think that's just as important. We're going to be losing some good mechanics if we don't start paying them what they're worth. So yes, so it's just for the continuation.
Okay, everyone clear now? We have the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a second. All right, those in favor, say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, the motion carries 5-1 with Mr. Walter dissenting. Thank you, Ms. Klutz. We have a proposed budget.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, board members, we're going to move along with the meeting now. And our next action item here is the child nutrition program, the breakfast and lunch increases. And we have Dr. Kelly Probst and Mr. Frank Friel-Rella with us tonight. So the podium's yours, and whenever you get through, we'll move on. And board members, remember we discussed this last week, so it's not new to us.
Good evening. Last week, Mr. Farella and I presented the recommendation to raise the child nutrition price lunches by 10 cents and for next school year. After last Monday's board meeting, Mr. Farella and I answered your questions related to other district pricing, food preparation, nutritional requirements, and issues related to limiting food waste. Last week at the board meeting, we did incorrectly report that Kannapolis City Schools was raising their lunch prices by 10 cents. In fact, they are raising their prices by 15 cents. This morning, we received notification from Lincoln County that they are raising their prices by 10 cents. In lieu of the increased requirements for additional fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, in lieu of the rising food prices, and in lieu of the federal mandate to meet the recommended threshold for regular paying students' meal prices, we are asking the board to approve the 10-cent increase for the 2013-14 school year. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Ms. Probst. We'll start on Mr. Phillips' side. Do you have any questions in reference to increase?
Well, it just, for my interpretation, as I understand it, the goal here is to set the prices so that taxpayers are not subsidizing the meals of middle class and upper class students. That's basically what it is, and the fact that we also have to have higher quality food and therefore a higher price means that we have to raise the prices, or else we're going to be subsidizing the food of people who should be able to pay for it if we ever want to eliminate our deficits.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Harrison, do you have any comments, questions?
I think Ms. Probst and I have exchanged emails about quantifying food waste, which I know is a reality and happens every day. But my concern was simply to be able to quantify it over time. And I think we're in agreement that will be quantifiable in the future.
Yes, sir. For those of you that don't...
Will you be able to give us precise, exact numbers at some time in the future and a report to that effect?
What I would like to do is this previous year, as I had mentioned at the last meeting, we did our first research project where we actually stood at the trash cans and watched the types of foods the students were throwing away, and we took inventory of exactly what that was, and we did change the way we sold some of the foods. I think I mentioned cutting up the apples and oranges as just one small piece of it. I will tell you, over this week I started thinking about, that's a quantifiable research project. I want to do something that's more perception oriented. Not only would we repeat the same research study we did last year, but this time I think I want to go out and I want to sit with the students, I want to sit with the teachers. They eat with the children, and I want to ask them what they think. What can we do to make the children eat some more of what's on their plate? And then I started thinking about the size of, we're dictated by the federal government on what size these servings are. And a kindergartner, you look at their plate, there's a lot of food on that plate. So I do want to start looking at those pieces of it. Some of it we can change, some we can't. But I will tell you, with the new nutritionist and with Mr. Fiorella, he works tirelessly to make sure that the recipes are things that the kids like, as well as they meet the nutritional requirements. I will just promise you that we will keep bringing that information back to you.
Thanks very much.
Ms. Probst, I have a clarification question real quickly. I've just noticed this. The action item 9.2, if you'll look at that, it says the Child Nutrition Program breakfast and lunch increases for 2013-2014. And then when you look at the recommended action, which is what the superintendent recommends, it says that a 10-cent price increase for school lunches be implemented. Are we asking for school breakfast and school lunch?
Actually, just the lunch. We could raise the prices on the breakfast because we are adding an additional fruit requirement, but we decided just to come based on what we bring in from reimbursement from the federal government as well as a la carte sales. We decided just to make the increase at lunch.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Mr. Walter, you have your question.
Yeah, most of my questions were yesterday, or last week, but so you're saying that the same meal, same requirements for a kindergartner is the same as a fifth grader? As far as what's served?
In terms of an elementary serving?
Yes, sir. Calories and serving size.
Really? Okay. Just for parents out there, budgeting purposes, what should they expect to budget for an elementary school student, a middle school student, and a high school student for next year? You don't have to answer that now, but if we could put it on our website or something.
Sure. I think I mentioned to you all in some of the research we gave you, we averaged that it was going to be around $420 for a paying child to eat all year long. And I was jokingly, I don't know if it was jokingly, telling you that when I was a working mother and the kids were in school and I'd get home at 6, there wasn't time to cook a whole lot. And I used to joke and say, for that $2.10 or whatever it was at the time, my kids, that's the most nutritious meal they got. I could not go out and buy those foods and prepare that type of meal for $2.10 at that time. And I still feel like that's the same price. If you go shopping now and you see the prices of these meals, or fruits and vegetables, it's expensive to shop for the really good things. Marika, do you feel the same way?
Completely. I agree. It's very expensive.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walter. Mr. Harrison, do you have something else you want to add? Was you finished? Hoping that cut you off.
Believe it or not, sir, no, I do not. No.
Okay.
Difficult as that may be to believe,
Okay.
but I'm fine.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off. Mr. Kiger, you have any comments?
The bottom line is that the service that we're providing, the cost is going up. We're doing all we can do to keep it down, but the reality at the end of the day is we need to bump it 10 cents to help keep it in line, and that's what you're asking us to do. It's involuntary. It's voluntary. You don't have to buy it. You can bring something from home, but the kid's going to eat lunch one way or the other. If we made them stand in line and made them eat it, that's a different story. But if that doesn't work for you, you bring a sandwich or whatever. So to work within the principles that we're trying to do, we need to recoup a little extra cost that we're incurring. And my hats off to you for working as hard as you can to try to keep it down. So thank you. And the waste factor, that's a whole, the whole Hunger Foods Act and waste and what we're doing, that's a whole different discussion. But what we're talking about here is the cost of us to produce a meal. We've got to be able to recoup 10 more cents off of each meal.
Thank you, Mr. Kiger. Mr. Shoemaker, you have your final comments, question?
Yes, sir. Frank, Kelly, thank you very much. And one of the things that came out in the information you sent us was the a la carte sales for Union County and seemed to be subsidizing a lot of the lunches. So it's a huge opportunity for us to, I don't know which groups actually use the a la carte. I would assume it would probably middle school and high school would be your biggest your biggest sources of revenue. And so I would challenge you to try to find a way to make that menu even more appealing and or make those options even more appealing, even to offering smoothies and things like that that are really healthy and provide them the kind of nutrition, but that also could help augment the income that we received and to try to keep our prices down. I don't know if you would like to comment against that or on that.
Just a quick comment about the a la carte. There was public comments for a la carte regulations, and our a la carte foods will need to move towards healthier options in the future, and that's a great comment about smoothies.
Traditionally, your a la carte sales were, cookies and your sticky buns and all of those things that the dietitians and the government tell you that you shouldn't be selling. So thank you for suggesting the idea of the smoothies.
Well, with the smoothies, it's a way to interject all kinds of veggies in there and fruits and disguise it. So it's, it's just a little bit of equipment.
Doesn't look like a sticky bun. Thanks.
You let the cat out of the bag, Barry.
They could have had a V8.
Okay, board members, I appreciate the open and honest discussion. I'd like to entertain a motion that a 10-cent price increase for school lunches be implemented in the Cabarrus County school system as presented for the 2013-2014 school year.
So moved.
Mr. Shoemaker made the motion. Mr. Harrison seconded the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, Frank and Ms. Probst, for all that you do for us. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, we're going to move on to, we've got 2 more items here, and we'll ask Dr. Colleen Sane to come to the podium where she'll be presenting the presenting the policies on revision for the first reading. And you'll notice, and Ms. Sane will probably tell you this, but majority of these policy changes are North Carolina School Board Association revisions, and then we have, of course, 2 new policies. And Dr. Sane can bring those to us at this time.
I'll be glad to. I want to start just very quickly, the Title I program, policy, parent involvement, and federal requirement. This policy is required by Title I that we have a policy called Title I Parent Involvement, but we did update it to the changes that were required by North Carolina School Board Association and the changes in the laws and recommendations regarding Title I, and as Race to the Top applies to North Carolina. Tara Natras wrote most of this policy for us. She is the Title I director, and she wrote it in coordination with the state Title I policies. Anybody have any questions about that policy?
Mr. Walter.
Got a couple. On the first sentence, would we want to say something more like parent involvement is a critical, integral part?
We can.
Okay. And then
Okay.
can you talk about item G? What is that? And that's where it says additional federal requirements.
Okay. Well, we have to do this every year, and that
It's
we
the same. It's item G on the
item
bottom.
G, right?
It's talking about
Right.
consulting with private schools.
What we have to do is we have to give them an opportunity to determine whether or not they want to participate with us in this. So we have to invite us for all federal programs. We have to invite them in. We have to share with them what our programs are, what the regulations are. And quite frankly, there's so much paperwork, they're really not interested, but we're required to share that information with them.
Okay, I have one other comment.
Yes.
If I can find it. Under item C, I don't think it's clear. Is that supposed to be at each school?
1 second, please. Yes, each school holds an annual Title I parent meeting. Each Title I school holds an annual Title I parent
Maybe if
meeting.
we insert in there at each school.
Okay.
Just to make it clear.
Yes,
Those were my comments.
thanks.
Okay, Mr. Walter, thank you. Any other comments on this particular policy?
May we please spell check through the documents
Yes.
consistently? Please.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions for that one? Okay, we'll bring that to you back with the corrections next month for second read. There are a number of technology policies with this one. The online instruction policy is a new policy recommended by North Carolina School Board Association. It is aligned with the State Board of Education policy. The important part of this is North Carolina Virtual Public School and other e-learning schools don't have the same seat time hours that are required for our high school courses. And this allows us to go ahead and grant credit for those North Carolina Virtual Public School courses and other approved e-learning courses, regardless of seat time or days in the class. So that allows us that exception. It directs us to have a designee for e-learning. We already have that at every high school. And we do have counselors who talk with students about enrolling in online courses. So this is kind of a catch-up to something that we're already doing. Any questions about 3201?
Just the e-learning advisor, is that a title that we actually have? Are we using that title? Or is that a new title that we have to give somebody?
No, it's e-learning. What we have called it before is the e-learning designee, if you want to know the truth. And it's whoever the principal designates to be in charge of that.
Colleen, are there, Dr. Sain, are there
Yeah.
any requirements that e-learning advisor goes through to be up to speed on the different programs that are out there? Because they are actually given responsibility now to say this particular online program is approved or this one is not
Right.
approved. So they hold the key in their hand, and how prepared are they to make that type of a
Well, the
discernment?
only one the state has approved. Okay, so I can go ahead and know full well that I can sign you up for this class and give you credit for is the North Carolina Virtual Public School. And the other ones, you have to bring us the curriculum and bring us your transcript, and then we grant you credit if it meets North Carolina curriculum. And yes, they're usually counselors, and they're well-trained in that.
Right. So this has nothing to do with the cost of the program. Like, I guess
No.
clarification on NC Public Virtual, is that cost borne by the parent, or is that cost borne by the
It's
system?
borne by the system.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. One of my children, my son is currently taking a class through the NC Virtual Public School. It's, I think, been a very good experience. He took one last year as well. For parents who, for whatever reason, aren't going to send your child to a magnet program, but you want to have very in-depth science and technology classes, or perhaps a special foreign language, this is a tremendous option that is available. And as Dr. Sain just said, it is covered, the cost is covered by the school district.
We cover it. That's
It is
right.
yet another bonus feature of sending your children to the Cabarrus County school system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any questions about that? 3220 is technology in the educational program, and sometimes what happens to policy is it catches up with technology. Okay, so technology is evolving so quickly that our old policy had language in it like wikis and things like that were very popular about 3 or 4 years ago, but right now we've got much better ways to do things. And so this policy acknowledges the changing landscape for technology and how it's incorporated into the instructional day. C&I is already working on curriculum mapping. In that curriculum mapping, that will include technology as a resource in learning. It changes, the interesting thing, it goes from technology resources that are related to the topic now to technology resources that support the topic. And I think there's value in that language. The policy also has provisions for the first time of BYOT, bring your own technology. And my understanding is that in our system we have at least one school, several schools, many schools, all schools who support bring your own technology device. So this particular policy is a matter of the policy catching up to practice. Any questions about this policy?
I would like to repeat my previous suggestion.
Got it.
Respectfully.
Yeah, okay.
My only comment is the BYOT. Why isn't that not a separate policy?
It could be if that's what you prefer.
I mean, I think it probably could be since you're saying it's at every school. Just
We do have suggestions for the schools in terms of administrative guidelines that they use at the school, and we've kept it at that level as opposed to having a separate policy.
yeah, I just think it would be easier if somebody's bringing their own technology. What's the policy? You don't have to give them the whole thing. You give them something specific to bring your own technology.
When I take that back to committee, I'll make that recommendation, okay?
Well,
Any other
just as a build on what Dr. Probst said, just feedback, you're saying that there's more detail in your procedures for BYOT. This is just a policy, so we don't really need a lot of detail at this level.
Right.
Since it's a board policy, yes, we have a board policy on bringing your own technology. Then if they want to know how to do it, then they come to the schools, and there's a true process that's more in-depth for that, rather than creating another policy is all I'm trying to.
Correct.
Okay.
We have very detailed processes in terms of letters for the parents and the students to sign, in terms of how it operates in the school, when they can use their own technology, when they can't. And we probably have 25 different articles for the students and teachers to read, PowerPoints, training materials, everything like that. So much more detail. It's already created.
Yeah, I just think it's separate. It's separate enough of a topic where it could be its own policy. But I understand the broadness of it.
Yeah, I would just suggest that we leave it like it is because it's a one paragrapher. And I just don't see a policy for a one paragraph.
I'll take it back to policy committee and let us have a discussion about it. And Mark, I'm sure will be there, and he can advise us on the best way to go, okay? And we'll bring back that recommendation. The next policy is a policy we're very proud of. We developed that policy within this county, and it took us about 6 months to do it. The new policy that came in from the state as a change in wording of language from acceptable use to responsible use, and it reflects, again, the changing landscape of integration of technology into the curriculum. And so we respectfully support the idea that it's responsible use, not just acceptable use anymore. Any questions about that one?
Just looking at that, it really just is a title change. There's nothing.
It really
moving
is a title change, and we're
Okay.
very proud of the fact that we focus on responsible behavior with technology as opposed to banning pieces of technology from being used, because we think the landscape changes too quickly.
Okay, thanks.
The next one is internet safety. This policy is new and was submitted by the North Carolina School Board Association. The really important part of this policy is the definitions that come into play. And the purpose of this policy is to meet the requirements of the federal law for receiving federal funds, E-rate funds, and Elementary and Secondary Education Act funds, and meet the requirements of the Children's Internet Protection Act. Yes, sir.
When you look at number 2C, harmful to minors, and you go, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value as to minors. Can you help me with how we would define that? Or, I mean, because that's a pretty broad range of things, and how are you going to discern that this lacks value? And where are we on that? Because that's a huge, broad area that you've kind of got there.
That, I think, is more of a cover language in that, and maybe Mark can help us with that, but it's something that's put in there to protect us.
It actually comes from some Supreme Court First Amendment cases talking about the added protection for items that possess serious literary, artistic, or political or scientific value, which should have First Amendment protection that you may have more restrictions on limiting. So really that flows out of several cases talking about what can be viewed as pornographic or inappropriate behavior. So it's really, and to determine what that is, there's a lot of case law about that, but that language kind of tracks the Supreme Court case under the First Amendment. So,
the danger of the language is when you put in political and scientific, now you've made some value judgments as to what's appropriate scientific and what's appropriate political. And so that's where I'm kind of concerned about that language, because who interprets what is, and how does that get, is there some type of arrangement that gives us some definition as to what those are? Because I don't want a student to be held accountable for having a belief or an understanding of something that's very, very different than others' understanding, but they can't utilize that information because it falls outside of the political or scientific value. Those two especially are up for potential discussion later on.
Mark, correct me. Go ahead.
I think the challenge is if you, my concern would be if you just, for example, just remove C so that it's not a provision, you may run afoul of some of the cases saying if something has a book has serious literary value, despite the fact that it may fit into the other categories. But I mean, is the question, should we just remove C from that definition? Would that be the option? I don't know that we could in a policy try to redefine some of those terms. I guess I'm not sure how to do that.
I just wondered what they mean and what limits could be, what kind of abuses could result from these. That's really where I am. Because if a child is investigating, and you know the divisive political environment that we're in right now, and they investigate something that the mainstream folks don't agree with, then someone could say, well, you shouldn't be doing that. That's outside this. That's not it lacks serious.
I think right now the definition requires all three of the.
Exactly.
In other words, it's an and B.
Right.
We can't simply say that this doesn't have value and therefore it's harmful to minors.
Right.
It has to appeal to prurient interests and depict in a patently offensive way and have C. And I guess so you may that in of itself, if we just say it doesn't have value, would not make it harmful to minors under this definition. What your question, what I thought you were going, and I think is a fair question, is can you remove C and just say it's harmful to minors if it's A and B? And that I'm less sure of, but I believe that the reason C is in there is this case law about the definition of pornography and what does or does not have.
This was more of an alert. This could be abused if divisiveness continues the way it has been. I just don't want the potential for someone's right for free inquiry to be limited because another person or a teacher or something has a very jaded viewpoint and they don't want that person to go this direction, and then they can say this doesn't lack the right kind of integrity.
But it would also have to include interest in nudity, sex, or excretion, and also have to meet the mandates of C before we even B before we even look at C. So it's A plus B and C. It would have to, before it would be designated as harmful to minors, it would have to meet that three-pronged test rather than just a single test of value.
Well, could you say that in the term harmful to minors, just say something about the three-term or three-pronged test?
Okay.
Just so that you know that there's a three-pronged test to this, because I didn't really clean that out.
Got it. We can do that.
May I suggest, please, at the end of 2A, a comma and the word and?
Okay.
So that reads that all three are required,
Yep.
not any one or any combination
Yeah.
of two.
We can do that.
Do that. And we can I think we can even add language in the introductory phrase that says all three. Given that several board members didn't necessarily read it that way, we can make it clear, and we should. So we'll do that in policy committee.
Okay. Web page development is the next one. This is a revision policy, again, that updates language, updates responsible use rather than acceptable use. It includes the language of athletic team as a system-related website if you have a website that is for an athletic team. In addition to that, it eliminates language regarding disk space on the system server because we no longer store information that way. Any questions on that one?
I'm sorry. I have one.
Sure.
Some of I know when I'm coaching at Hickory Ridge, we had a Facebook page. Does that get covered under this? Because this said website, but a Facebook page is kind of a little different, but it was for the team, and I don't know if there's anything that addresses that.
We allow school-sponsored Facebook pages. That said, within the school, if there is a sports team and it's within the school, we do allow a Facebook page for that team. Just like a teacher can have a Facebook page for her classroom activities. But what can't happen is it does not go over into the personal side. It is controlled by the employee, and it's to promote the communication of information one way through that employee.
Would this necessarily address, or is this something a little more specific as far as the system
This
website,
specifically does not get into the Facebook issue. We covered that on
Technology
the
acceptable use?
acceptable use.
Oh, okay.
This specifically is about the district webpage.
Question on the PTO websites.
On the
Are
what?
they-
I'm sorry.
A PTO has a website. If they had a website, is that covered under this?
No.
PTOs can have a spot on the school page for information, but we typically do not allow the PTO president or whomever to have total access and can make all those. They work with a school system employee for that information. There are PTOs that have separate websites outside of Cabarrus County Schools, and that's something certainly that we don't control. But in terms of our webpage, we can have a PTO information on our school sites, and they work on putting that information with one of our employees.
And I would say that's covered under C, under A, that it is a system, it is a school-sponsored organization.
So it would be covered.
I would think, yeah, it's covered as, it's a school-related site.
Right.
Yes, sir.
The same kind of question. There are some very active lacrosse groups associated with high schools or other schools. Certainly call themselves the name of the school lacrosse team. Those are not officially sponsored, therefore do not fall under these. And I'm referring to their Facebook pages. And I guess what I'm saying, if someone uses the name of one of our schools, it doesn't always apply.
If our school has a lacrosse team and it's a school-sponsored team, then it applies. If there is a club in a neighborhood or an area and on a Facebook page says that they're Hickory Ridge students that attend, they can write anything they want on their Facebook page. What we have said to our staff is that if you have a private Facebook page, you cannot use the Cabarrus County logo, and we also ask you not to speak as an employee on your personal page. So again, we can't stop what a community does, but it's not part of what we put in our policy.
Under our official auspices.
Correct.
Correct.
I'm sorry, going back to the
Yes.
other policy we were talking about before, the responsible use now.
Yes.
So if a PTO website is covered, then those folks would be considered as employees? Or because they're
No,
volunteers?
it's a
or they're not?
system-related website.
I'm just a little confused on
Okay.
some of that.
But it's always an issue about the PTOs, because we trust our PTO parents and we want them
Sure.
to, but we also don't want to give them access and user rights and administrative passwords to create the website. So we do allow the PTO to have a section on school site web pages, but they work with our technology information people. They give them the information. We help create the site. We just don't turn that over we don't have the PTO president go through the responsible use training, sign the form, give them a password, and allow them to create the content on our website.
But we're still asking them to make sure they follow these certain procedures, that they're not exposing children
Well, absolutely.
unintentionally to addresses or whatever
Right,
we've
because
got in here.
let's say the PTO president supplied information that violated that and we posted it, we would be at fault, but we also make sure that they understand that we can't do these certain things.
Guess my thing is if they post it on their own website that was created, that's what I'm.
If they post it on their own website, then, it's up to the parent to come back after whoever posted that site. And that's one of the things that gets really difficult with social media. We can only control what we do as a system, and it's really difficult with 5,000 employees to make sure that they follow what is expected and don't post the wrong type of information. And we work very hard to make sure they understand what can and cannot be posted.
And to the board, let me apologize. I'm supposed to be the liaison to the policy development group, and I have been a poor liaison, which I will do my absolute best in the future to do better at. But again, I appreciate the coordination of all the work that you're doing to get these policies together. I would, in the future, in the long run, look to coordination of policies so that the policies do augment each other very well and
Right.
and complement each other.
Well, yeah.
And not establish kind of dueling policies in any way, which I'm sure you're
Oh,
doing
I agree
very,
with
very,
you
very
on
well.
that.
But as we continually expand policies,
Well, this is
they all need to
yeah.
be in agreement with each other.
This is why we saved all the technology policies for one time, because if we had taken them as they'd come in, what you would have had is the possibility of disagreement between policies. And Kelly and her staff were very much a part of going through the changes. The person who belongs to, that the policy is describing their department, we make sure that they're very involved from the get-go on what they're doing. Every once in a while something slips through, but as soon as we know it, we fix it.
That's right, and as Dr. Sain said, most of these policies are cross-referenced to other policies, and you'll see that at the footnotes of most of all of the policies, so that they do correlate.
Okay, just clarifying again on the bottom of that other technology responsible use, we say that volunteers are categorized as employees. So is a PTO person a volunteer? If we consider them a volunteer, then they've got to comply with this rule under employees. Is that, or am I completely?
Maybe this will clarify it. Anybody that comes in our building and they are working with students and they might go to a computer lab, there might be a computer in front of them in a classroom, they have to abide by the responsible use policy. Just because they're a volunteer doesn't mean that they can go out and do all sorts of searches and do inappropriate things that they shouldn't be doing inside our school buildings near our children. So I think maybe that's the clarification, if that helps. I'm not sure. Did you give me a look like it helps?
I'm still trying to just read through it and seeing if it applies.
Well, if you have a volunteer that goes into a classroom one day a week, you wouldn't expect that all the employees would follow this policy, but this volunteer doesn't have to. So we're basically saying you have to follow the same policies.
It seems like you're saying that the emphasis is more on the facility and the equipment, which is ours, more so than it is on the role or the category of the individual walking into the school.
Exactly. It doesn't
We
matter
own
what your
this stuff, so
category
do it
is.
this way, regardless whether you're an employee or a volunteer or student teacher in that. Maybe that's,
And it's about
if
safety,
I
not
use
just
the
the
stuff
equipment,
in
but
the
for the child.
facility,
Right.
follow these policies, regardless of the role.
It all goes back to the Children's Internet Protection Act, SIPA. We have to guarantee that we are protecting our children. And so whether it's a volunteer, visitor, staff member, you have to follow by these policies.
Thank you. Okay. Operation and Food Services, this is one that was pulled. I think there were some questions that Mark has responded to, and without change, it's been put back on for first read. This is an upgrade in this policy that we used to have to get separate bids for waters and juices, but now we can get one bid. So that's really the only change in this one. Are there any questions on 6220? Okay. I bring you great tidings that 7323 is actually a policy we're deleting. I know. We'll pass the punch later. I know.
You promised and you delivered,
Hey,
Dr. Sane.
I do
Thank
my
you.
best. This policy is actually replaced by 3225, 4312, 7320, and it would have been contradictory to the approach that we were taking with regard to responsible use of technology with students instead of what equipment you can use and how you should use it. The bottom line is we expect our employees to act responsibly when they're with students, regardless of what tool they're using to work with students on. So that's that one. Any questions? Anybody want to keep it? Did I skip one? Network security. I did skip one. All right. Network security. Again, the purpose of the change in this one was to incorporate the language of PowerSchool. It is our new student management information system, and to require that network security information be shared with teachers as a part of training. This is nothing new. We've talked about teachers and maintaining the integrity of the network and not just plugging in any old thumb drive to any old computer and downloading viruses or sharing passwords. Any questions about that?
Just some inconsistencies on the title of Chief Technology Officer, and
I can fix that.
Here we have some that are we I guess in the first paragraph we changed Chief Technology Officer and replaced it with Superintendent, but we did not do that throughout the document.
We'll do that.
And I believe in the past we've discussed how, or at least the Technology Committee has discussed how sharing passwords and other things like that lead to material breakage and issues and problems and expenses and down equipment and I wish policies that can be directly tied to those costs could have some teeth in them in terms of repercussions and if I shouldn't do it for a reason, but I do it and mess things up and cost the system $1,000 to repair something, the policy should state some kind of
Cost assessment for the employee.
something related or cross-reference to HR. I don't know how else to say that, but
Okay.
I wish there could be some kind of real repercussions when we know that there's a direct correlation between sharing passwords and true expenses.
We can actually cross-reference. There's a professional standards, professional behavior for employees. Can't think of the name of it right now, but we could go back and cross-reference it with that. That at least would make the link between human resources and this particular policy. Okay. Last one, okay. The workday, this is policy 7500. This is a request that came from finance, and again, we want to make sure our policies align with the practices that we have. And I believe when Kelly went through and looked, she realized that our actual work week begins on Monday and ends on Sunday, rather than beginning on Sunday and ending on Saturday, and that's the only revision to this policy. Any questions? Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Sane. Board members, we got word on all the policy revisions and the new ones and the changes and all that. And so what I'd like to do is ask for a motion that the policy revisions on the first reading be approved with the recommended changes that Dr. Sane has made note of.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Harrison made the motion. Mr. Walters seconded the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Dr. Sane. Okay, we've got one more item on our agenda tonight. This is the approval of the board meeting calendar for 2013 and 2014, and Dr. Barry Shepherd's going to talk to us about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We took the recommendations of the board from last week and made some changes to the calendar that we presented. If you'll notice, we did change the November business meeting date to November 12th. Also note that under type of meeting, we've added locations for 4 of our work sessions. We've identified schools that we want to work with to host those. We moved away from your recommendation of high schools and went to middle schools simply because in discussion with staff, we felt like sometimes high schools get all the attention, and perhaps it would be good to share some of that attention with the middle schools. So if there's no objection, I'd like to work with the schools we've listed there. We will continue to work with Mike Downs to schedule common meetings with our county commissioners. That is not a part of what we're asking you to approve tonight. We just need a little more time on that one. So I'll bring this to you as a recommendation for your calendar for the next year.
Thank you, Dr. Shepherd. Board members, you have any comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, November 12th is actually a Tuesday,
It
so
is.
it just needs to, okay, got it, and that's
It's a
fine.
mistake.
Okay, with that change, are there any other questions or concerns? Mr. Shepherd?
I do. Dr. Shepherd, I was just wondering, with our, and I wasn't able to attend all of our board retreat, but do you think we actually had enough time to do our board retreat, or do you think it got compressed this year because of the meeting with the commissioners? I'm just concerned that, because we have so much to cover in the retreat, that maybe we're doing ourselves an injustice by trying to compress it all into a one-day session. So
I do believe that that as long as I've been working with you, our retreats have been one-day events. But I also know at the end of that one day, it's been a full day. So I would like to keep the options open that if we think the agenda would be worth adding an additional day, we could do so at that time.
Any other comments or questions?
But we are gaining 3 hours additional than we had this past year, because we're not sharing that time with the commissioners.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, I'm, wherever we have the meeting, I'll be there. I promise you that. I'm going to reiterate what I said last week, that I think this is hard on staff to pick up and have a traveling road show. I mean, I don't think it will have a significant impact on anybody participating in the community. Maybe it will, and if we adopt it, I might be wrong. But I'd rather us meet here and let the staff continue on with what they have to do to support us in our meetings. But that's again, whatever we adopt, if we have a meeting, I will make sure that I'm there.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. It doesn't matter where we meet. We can meet here or meet there. It doesn't really matter. I understand Mr. Walters' concern about getting out and being in the community, getting engaged and all that. That's all well and good, but we'll just have to see how it works, so that's no problem. Mr. Phillips, you have a comment?
Well, just along the lines of what Blake brought up, but do we invite community speakers to speak at our work sessions or just our business meetings?
Only for the business meetings.
So in that sense, it might make more sense to do these kind of roadshow events at a business meeting. However, I guess maybe the thinking was that because we have a lot of recognition, you don't want to have a business meeting at a non-central location, or what was the thinking,
And I
Dr.
think-
Shepard?
You're correct on having recognitions here makes it, I think it increases our chance of success of getting everybody to the right location. And I think some difficulties we'll have to work through, and I've talked with Mark, and he certainly is supportive of this, is, how would we get those televised when we're out and about in the community? There's some difficulty. We have the ability to turn mics on and off, and so we have some logistics to work out. But I would say one of the things that's exciting is the fact that we might make those work sessions true work sessions where we're doing the work, and our meetings are pretty much so very similar to each other. So we could get really creative and with the issues of the time or the issues of that particular community, and maybe make some interaction time during the meetings. It might not be best for the viewing audience at home, but it might be some good work with the board and the community. So we reserve the right to be creative in those meetings.
Mr. Harrison, you have a comment?
And just quickly, by virtue of approving this and having a meeting at any of these other locations, are we also going to promote, market, inform, tell the parents and staff in some way or another that we're going to be there that night, so that their availability to come to that session might increase the audience size, so to speak. But I'm just wondering to actively market the fact that we're going to be in a different location in time for that event.
I'm not modeling my shoes.
No. I'm sorry, that was germane to my point. Objection.
Oh my gosh. When we did the traveling work sessions before, what we would do was send Blackboard Connect phone messages to the families of the schools in that particular attendance boundary, to let them know about the meeting location and the time. We also posted that information, of course, on our website, so we did let them know.
Now, is that an expense when we send out a voicemail? Is there a charge for that kind? I'm familiar with a different system that charges for each call to.
We don't pay per call, we pay per student.
Okay.
And that's an annual fee.
So we are increasing expenses by.
No, we have a contract. We have a 3-year contract with the
unlimited
company.
for use.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Because you potentially send out so many.
Yes, sir. And we do send out a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Moon, I have one question before you go, because, when this was done last time, I was not part of the board,
Yes, sir.
that 2-year absence. What was the attendance like? How did these people receive our meetings?
The meetings were fairly well attended. We had some that were better attended than others, and those typically tended to be when the topics on the agenda were more raised more interest in the community than others. But the meetings were fairly well attended.
We get that now. So
Correct.
Is it different than what we have now, or relatively the same? When there's a hot topic, people are here, and when it's.
I would say it was relatively the same.
Okay.
That's sort of what I thought too, but like I say, this was Mr. Walter's request, and so you have any further comment, Mr. Walter?
Well, I think it's good that we're making the effort to be more open and to get more community input. And I don't think, can we change the policy for a work session to allow folks to speak at it? Is that something that needs to?
You have two options. Your current policy says by majority vote, the board can allow public comment at any meeting. So one option would be to simply vote to allow comment. You could also revise 2310 to do it. The only issue there is if you change formats, you may not, if you could change it to say either work session or business session, but then it would be all of those. I don't know if that's what the board wishes to do, to kind of have guest speaker times at both meetings. I think once upon a time we may have done that, but that's been quite a while ago. I think we've kind
I'd
of
leave
gone
that to the
once
chair's
a month.
decision.
Well, the way I'm looking at it is, and we had a speaker tonight that spoke relevant to this when we voted on the STEM program last week. When we put items from the work session onto the consent agenda, then it's pretty much approved on the business meeting. And so there's no time for the parents or for the community to bring complaints or whatever to us. And so I wouldn't oppose us having public comment on work sessions. I wouldn't oppose that simply because we need guidance, and if we're going to put something on the consent agenda, and if there's someone here that wants to speak about that, it might sway our decisions one way or the other, and then again it may not. But it's the pleasure of the board, whatever the board wants. We've traditionally done it on business meetings because we don't have all of the things that we normally have on work session. Tonight was sort of an exception. We had quite a few recognitions, end of the year type thing, and then we had all these action items here that we normally just would pass right on to the consent agenda. So a little bit unusual tonight and last week as well. But whatever the pleasure of the board is fine with me.
Well, my pleasure is that we don't have meetings that go till midnight, but so let's not load up our work sessions unduly. But I do like the idea of maybe 4 of these meetings that are at a remote location, that we make the one-time exception that we vote and say yes, we will allow public comment at those meetings, and then maybe we scrutinize the agenda to make sure that you're not making the meeting too long. And it looks like Dr. Shepard, you've already got the budget public hearing matched up with the March meeting at CC Griffin. So we would already be getting public comments there. So it's only 3 additional meetings where we would be doing this. So I think that might be a nice approach.
I agree with you, Mr. Phillips. That won't be no problem. Mr. Water, you have any further comments?
My only other comment here was I think we need to have more time between the meetings for the public comment, exactly how it was mentioned to us, that they didn't get this notice till Friday. If they wanted to comment, they really don't have a whole lot of time to organize and get on our agenda to be a speaker.
It's twice it's done.
So, but I realize the rest of the board and realize they keep it the same, so I'll still vote. I'm okay with it.
Okay, well, so what we're going to do then is we can entertain a motion that the board meeting calendar for 2013, 2014 be approved as presented, except we do want to open up for public comment on the 4 work sessions that we have slated for the 4 middle schools. Is that correct? With the other change, it will be on November the 11th instead of the 12th, since that's just we don't want to meet on Tuesday. All right.
Mr. Hsu.
Yes.
Chairman Hsu, Aileen just alerted me that the March 3rd meeting work session budget public hearing is specifically a public hearing for the budget only on that particular one.
You may want to just add a public comment period to each of the 4 meetings held at the middle school, if that's the board. That's what I understand the board's wishes to be.
I think that's what the board's saying, okay. Mr. Enriquez. So it'll be just a public comment section on those 4 meetings, okay, at the schools. All right, do I have a motion that we adopt this proposed calendar for 2013-14 with these changes?
So moved.
Mr. Harrison makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Phillips seconds it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay.
Opposed and no. That was all run together as one word. Did you notice that?
I did. Okay, so Ms. Monroe, it's 5-1, Mr. Kiker dissenting. Okay, Dr. Shepard has asked that he add to his superintendent comments. So, Dr. Shepard, the floor is yours.
Timing is everything, and I had hoped that we could get a report on our open house tonight for our STEM program at Patriots that's running simultaneous. Soon to be Dr. Van Hukelum. I'd like to ask you to come to the microphone and give us an update. He was there for the open house as we were meeting tonight.
Thank you. Had a good meeting with parents tonight at Patriots. I'd say approximately 300 folks were there. Very good positive energy. Went through the presentation. Julie, Barbie, and Phil did a great job explaining all the details. Met with parents afterwards, talked to them. Overall, very good vibe. Parents were very happy. Those that were on the waiting list were just very grateful. You could see their excitement about having this opportunity to go to STEM education. So I just wanted to give you that update. There's still some concerns from the culture and web community. I think you heard some of those tonight, but overall, very positive feel.
Jason, that's a good report. I thank you for going out there and being our representative and taking care of business out at the Patriots. Look forward to that program getting started real soon. Thanks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and staff members, that concludes our open session for tonight's meeting. I want to thank all of you once again for being here, and so it's time for me to call for a motion that the board convene in closed session pursuant to General Statute 143.31811A6 and 143.31811A3. Do I have such a motion? I have a motion, Mr. Harrison, I believe.
Yes.
All right, I have a second, Mr. Shoemaker. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, our motion carries. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you back in May.